All right, this is 12-3 of the pre-algebra class. We are going to start with the lesson, finish the district assessment, the constructed response, and then we'll get into the homework from Wednesday's page 616 on box and whiskers. All right. So when we look at graphs, a lot of times we use graphs to persuade things. A lot of times the graphs that are used to persuade use breaks, differences in scale, and different width bands. So, the use of breaks. Okay, let me show you what a break looks like. Make a bar graph that compares the cost of a discount shoes for $90 and brand name shoes for $130. Okay, using a break would look something like this. And not using a break would look something like this. Okay. Now, the break. What's different about the first graph compared to the second? Naomi?
It has a little
squiggly line. And what that means is the first number it starts at is not 80. It's inclusive all the way to 0. So what that means, it's the same thing as this right here, because they're saying all that's being shown. Or I should go all the way to the 0. Does that make sense? Yes, Aaron.
So the break is for so you can save space.
Exactly. So I don't have to really make this, I don't have to do such, like here my increments are in 10. Here our increments are in what? 20s. So I can make it a little bit more accurate by doing it in tens. So I use the break, it saves space. It means everything, this goes all the way down, the little break right there. The little break there. Right here. That zigzag, that means it's inclusive of everything to 0. So this really goes all the way down, this box right here goes all the way down to 0. Does that make sense? And this one goes all the way down to 0. Okay. All right. So now, let's go back. Why is graph number 1 deceptive? Okay. Wyatt.
Because the discount looks a lot lower than the name brand.
Okay. Can anybody else look at this graph and maybe analyze? Let's look at it from a different perspective. That's right. How much more does the name brand look like it costs based on the graph? Yes.
$130.
No, not the exact amounts. I'm saying just looking at these. If I just glance at this and this, how much more does the name brand look like versus the discount? Yes?
120?
I said not specific numbers. Height-wise, how much more does the name brand cover? Yes?
Color's about 50 more, 40.
I said not numbers. I don't want to see what numbers. Not numbers specific to this. Gio.
The name brand is I got this.
10 times? Double? Triple?
The size of the discount.
Okay, it's 3 times. So if we just look at the bars, look, I can fit, this is about 2. This is about 3 times as much as this. But if I look at the numbers, I go all the way across, right? And I go all the way across. Is 130 3 times as much as 90? So the picture, if you don't read this over here, is very deceptive. So if you don't read your X and Y axis, it's very deceptive. Because the bars in this bar graph actually look like the name brand is 3 times greater than the discount. Now that's when you have the break in it. So if I look at the one with no break, it would be, this looks a little bit more accurate. They're both accurate, but the first one is deceptive. Does that make sense? It kind of tricks you. Because here we're still showing 90 and 130. Yes?
How was the first graph and the other one deceptive?
Because if you don't read that left half over here, and you just look at the bars, if you don't read this and you're just looking at this and this, it looks like the name brand is 3 times greater than the other one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to a different one. Okay, a bar graph with a horizontal or vertical bars is used to compare quantities. Okay. Now, if I look at, let's look at this one. If I compare A and E, it looks like E is almost double, if not more than double. 3 times as much. Okay? But A really, in fact, so A goes to about here. Did you say there? Okay. And then I could probably fit another one. So it's about 2.5 times more. Is that the case? 40 to 60, is that 2.5 times more? If I double 40, what would it be? 80. And then half of 40 would be?
20.
So that would be 100. Is this true? If I, without the, with the break, it's kind of misleading. But what that does is it helps you sell things. You know, helps you sell data. So if you're using it for a business plan and you're trying to compare, you know, brand A versus brand E, and you're really pushing for brand E, you're going to use something with a break for your business plan. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Changes in scale. I don't know why mine's not changing. Okay, here we go. Okay, changes in scale. Which company performs better? Company A or B? Quickly, tell me, quick, just look at the graph. Quick. First response. Let's go, Aaron. Okay, looks like it, right? Because we have a steeper slope. It looks like, you know, it's getting much higher, much quicker. Why is this deceptive? Now let's read the details of the math, of the graph. Gio.
I'm thinking that company B, they put 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry. I didn't finish it.
Oh, you did it?
No.
Is it supposed to be?
That's why.
That's why.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did trick you. Okay. So, look here. This one, but even if I had that up there, if you just look at the graph, A, like Aaron said, looks like the profits are much greater by year, each year, than in B. But once you read the details of the map, because this one is in dollars, in, you know, it's increasing by 500s. This is increasing by how much? Millions. And it's talking about millions. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to look for a slope and check the slope of that. Okay? Now a lot of people would think, remember a slope, all we need is 2 points. Okay, so what's my rise from here? Remember, how do we get our slope? Yeah. Okay, so my slope is equal to a rise over run. Okay, so I'm rising how much to get to the next point?
500.
I'm going up 500. And I'm running how much? Yes.
365 because it's a year. Does that make sense?
Not per day.
Oh, this is a year.
Yeah, why do we need 365?
1 year.
That's 1 year.
But why do I need 365? Why do you need to say a year is 365?
Because it's going ahead.
Do I ever talk about how much I make per day? Or do we look at a company's sales per year? We don't need days, yes.
Over 1?
Over 1, that's 1 year. 1 year, that's it. My rise is over 1 year. So what this means is it's $500 per 1 year. Okay? Now let's look at the other one. My rise over run. Okay? So I'm going to take this point and go to this point. My rise is about how much? What? Half what? Yes.
Half a million or
Half a million. What is that money wise?
500,000. I mean 500,000.
500,000. And then going across is how much, Rebecca? 1 year. Now, am I doing 1 over 1? No. You got to make sense of the information on the y-axis. So, this one, Company B, is making 500,000 per year. So, who makes more? Company B. Okay. Now, what makes this deceptive? What makes this deceptive is the scale. Notice the scale here is increasing by 500. The scale here is increasing by 1 million. Okay? So when you are comparing companies, you really kind of got to make sure if the scales are different that you're really making sense of that. Does that make sense? Generally, you like the graphs to be in the same scale. Or if they're different and Company B is really that much greater, you really want to show that. Does that make sense? Okay. Questions? All right. So I'm moving on. Okay. Which graph shows a more rapid increase in daytime temperature? Again, looking for the slope. Yes. What do you think?
I think mine graph B.
Well, let's look at them. Let's do our slope. Our rise over our run. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, let's try our rise over run. I'm going to just take like this one. Okay. So my rise is how much, Isabella?
20.
20. Over, what's my run?
Over
How many hours?
4.
I'm going from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m.
Oh, 2.
So it'd be 2 hours. Okay, and what is that about equal to?
10.
Okay, let's try it here. Okay, so my rise is what? Geo? 20, right? Each one of these is 10, right? Isabella?
Yeah.
And my run is over, huh?
The 1.
Okay, look at it. What does this line represent right here?
Oh, 6 a.m. So it's 2.
So it's 2 over 2. Okay? So going from one to the next, it's going to be 2. And what does it come down to? 10. So, which one shows a more rapid increase in temperature? Rebecca.
They're both equal.
They're both equal. So they're not really, even though this one is, that's why it's deceptive. Because, leave it. Because when you look at graph A, it's less steep. But if look at the scale, this is increasing by 20s, this is increasing by 10s. So you got to make sense of the scale. Does everybody understand what the scale is?
Yes.
Sam, am I being clear? Naomi, am I clear? Sarah? Okay. All right. So another way they can make graphs look deceptive. Bar graphs are generally of equal width. Only your height makes a difference. So look at this one. What's wrong with that graph? Melody.
One of the bars are thicker on the graph too. Some of them are thicker.
Yeah.
So they're not all.
It's only the height of the graph that makes sense. But by doing that, it's deceptive, by making that bar wider. Does that make sense? So these are ways they can trick you with graphs. Yes.
Why would they make it wider?
To try and trick you. Okay, remember, we use graphs to tell the picture of math. Okay, a graph is a great way to show math. When I look at your grades, I can look at where, if it falls on a bell curve. If I get something that looks like this, that tells me I gave a good test. Because most of my tests were in the middle. I had a few D's and F's and a few A's. Okay? It tells the picture. Tells the story of the math. So we can do this for, like, say, we're trying to persuade for a business plan. We can create a graph. Making wider bars is one way to deceive. To sway them in your direction. Yes, Melody?
But how would it matter if they're wider?
It doesn't matter. That's the point. So the product A is really, product B is really 35 units. Whoops. Product B is really 35 units. So, sorry about that. So product B is really 35 units. Because all we really have to do is look at where does it hit. I move across. Okay. Bella, what is the amount of product C?
Product C, there's about 40.
Good. What about product D? Actually, it's a little bit more than 40, right?
It's about 38 maybe.
And this one's about 38 or 40. They're hard to see. Okay, so then we've got, if you took a ruler, it's a little under 60. So do you guys understand how to read that? If you're dealing with slope or how much per something, then you got to make sense of your X and Y axis. Do you understand? Don't just give me because it goes up one line, 1 over 1 or 2 over 2. All right, and that's lesson 12-2. 12-3.